No, I don't know everything by far. I'm a good leader and a good team manager, but I'm not an expert in marketing. I'm not an expert in a field. So you pull upon all of these resources you have. I'd say, for example, we have projects, national tours that we manage, and we have a situation will come up, and I put the team together and I say, what's the best solution? They actually come to me and say, what should we do? I say, what would you do? This is your company. You're the owner of the company. How would you do it? And then ideas come from that. That's what's really exciting. Is they even bring ideas or angles that I never thought of. In the back of my head, you always ask that question. You know what you will do as an owner, but you want to hear from your team. And a lot of times they'll come from different angles and say, wow, and surprise you. And they even surprise themselves, and they grow and develop from that. It's really exciting.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Today we're going to talk about empowering your employees. What does that mean? Well, the opposite of micromanagement is empowering your employees. When you think about what it takes to believe in them, to have the confidence, that's part of the equation. But you also want them to believe in themselves. You want them to share their ideas, make decisions, and have a healthy relationship with failure. And that's what we're talking about on today's episode of Grow Think Tank. We have a very special guest with us. We have the co-founder of Creative State Marketing. His name is Greg Zalkin. Greg and I are going to talk about why is this feeling of ownership so important? We're also going to talk a little bit about why he puts employees first instead of customers inside his own leadership. And then we're also going to look at some of the details behind creating the sense of people sharing their ideas. And I think if you have an organization where people have the confidence to share those ideas without fear and judgment, you'll have something that will rise over time. So that's the episode today on Grow Think Tank. Now here's the interview with Greg. Hi, Greg. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I am fantastic. Glad to have you here at Grow Think Tank. I've already let our audience know a little bit about you as a leader and some of the things that we're going to talk about today. But tell us about Creative State Marketing.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be on. Creative State Marketing is an experiential marketing agency. We produce and execute events across the country, from product launches to festival management, to strategy and marketing initiative for brands, both big and small. Really any brand that we love.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you today because I think we have a lot in common as it comes to our thoughts on leadership and just really getting to the heart of it. It's really about empowering others to take ownership. Why is that important to the growth of your company?
I mean, if you look at a company, if you don't have intellectual property, you're a software company, your company is your people. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started and sold many companies, and it's all about the staff. If you don't have a good team that supports you and loves what they do every day and is passionate about what they do, it's really unsuccessful in my experience. And building that team is paramount.
That's the reason when I asked you my big key question about, as a leader, what's more important, customers or employees, you said
employees by far. You got to love what you do every day, and you got to love who you're working with, and then everything else comes. People can't set out to make money. They set out to do their passion, and then they get rewards from that passion, and then hopefully they get the benefits of loving what they do, loving who they work with, and then they make money. So I think a lot of people try to do it the opposite way, and you see that success or failure.
One of the things I really like about when we talked before is the sense of empowerment. You had a key question that you ask when someone comes to you, and I can imagine this works in most situations, but you ask your people, what should we do?
Yes.
So where did that come from?
My father was an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. My brother, sister, mom, everyone. So I've had a great pedigree of people to guide me. And I've learned that you don't always know best. And the most successful people that you see out there, surround them with really smart people. And, top-down management and saying this is how it should be, it doesn't work. You need people's opinions. You need people to feel part of it, something that's growing, that they care about, and they need to have a voice. If they have a voice, they feel like ownership and that it's their company as well. And we've seen it time and time again.
So give us a situation where this one, was a really kind of a breakthrough for the organization. Like an employee came up with something creative or something innovative for the company or solved a problem. Does something come top of mind when you ask that question? What should we do?
Oh, all the time, daily. And I'm a big believer in teaching people how to fish so they can feed themselves, right? So I know I don't know everything by far. I'm a good leader and a good team manager, but I'm not an expert in marketing. I'm not an expert in a field. So you pull upon all of these resources you have. I'd say, for example, we have projects, national tours that we manage, and we have a situation will come up, and I put the team together, and I say, what's the best solution? They actually come to me and say, what should we do? And I say, what would you do? This is your company. You're the owner of the company. How would you do it? And then ideas come from that, and that's what's really exciting. Is they even bring ideas or angles that I never thought of. In the back of my head, you always ask that question. You know what you will do as an owner, but you want to hear from your team. And a lot of times they'll come from different angles and say, wow, and surprise you. And they even surprise themselves, and they grow and develop from there. So it's really exciting.
Hold on for a second. Greg just said something that I want to put a spotlight on. You are the owner of the company. That's what he says to his employees when they have to make a decision. What would you do in this situation? How would you handle it? Whatever question you ask, if the tone is that you're the boss and that they must do it the right way, then you're not going to get the most out of that employee. But if you empower them to feel like they're an owner in the company, and what would you do if you were the CEO? Then they will look at it differently. They will look at it with more care and creativity. For example, a lot of people put boundaries on how people spend money in the company, and I get the reason for it. But if they had an owner's mindset, they would spend the money wisely, encourage them to really think like owners. You wouldn't be worried about how they would spend the money because they would spend it for the good of the company. Now, there's many other applications of this beyond just money, but I really believe that you want your people to feel like they're the owner and have that sense of they're the CEO of this project and this decision. Now back to the interview. Well, if you believe this, then you probably believe that part of your job is developing the person as an individual. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%.
And if they're coming to you with a problem and you solve the problem, which sounds like good leadership, like I know the idea, I know what I would do, and you just solve it for them, you're not really building them. You're just expecting them to be an army of doers. Whereas I think the way we think about this, you want an army of thinkers and really people that are willing to process. When you think about your leadership, when you really want to increase their level of confidence and courage in themselves. Tell us a little bit about how that happens.
Totally. And I think it's almost forcing people to go into an area they're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
Have they managed the client? No. Well, you're coming with me to client management meetings now, and you're speaking, you're delivering the presentation, because like when we first started speaking, it's all about the people. Like I can't do it all, right? Our company has had tremendous growth, and that growth is only because we have a great team that could go out there and represent us and be the face of our clients and our brands. A lot of brands we work with, you don't see the brand client in the market. It's our teams. So they really have to be comfortable in their own shoes and understand that they have the power to make the change, and they're representing our company and our clients, really.
I want to break this down into 3 pieces. I see these are very critical. There's certainly more to it, but empowerment comes when the first piece would be expecting people to share their ideas. I see a lot of companies where, the ideas come from the top and everyone kind of says, yes, that's a great idea. But you believe that everyone should be sharing their own ideas and their own thoughts. Tell us just a little bit about how you do that in meetings and across the company.
Yeah, definitely. A very important point. So every Monday we have an agency-wide meeting, everyone together, seeing what everyone else is doing, which is really important, from HR to accounting to client services to operations. So that's where it all starts, because we found at other companies, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, or it's the secret, or they don't know where the future of the company is. So almost every Monday we talk about the future of the company, what we're doing, what we're working towards, how's everyone's weekend, who's traveling, and we really it's like a sharing time. About 30 minutes, we go around the room, everyone updates on projects going on, and it's really this environment that's very open, and it feeds off each other, which is interesting because let's say one division hears another division talk about something, and they're like, oh, I know someone at that brand, or I had a similar situation in a past life because I worked in another agency. So it allows that open forum to everyone, give feedback. And some of those meetings actually go hours because people keep on adding. And then additionally, when we get a new client, so we get a lot of requests for our business. We very rarely actually pitch business. We'll get a client that says, hey, we want to do a project. We want you to do a project for us. So we will actually have an initial call with our client, understand the project, and then we'll have a brainstorming session with key people from many different departments or a whole department, and just brainstorm, ideas, throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And it's a little bit untraditional, but we feel like, one, it brings good ideas, and two, it makes people feel part of the team and the process and excitement about something that's coming up.
Yeah, you're hitting on some key elements there that increase ownership, which is transparency. Seems to be important to you guys, sharing all the numbers, talking about the future, and also inclusiveness, like expecting people to be a part of that meeting. I would imagine when I've seen this happen with my clients, no one wants to show up to those meetings and not be able to contribute consistently. And they're really thinking about how they can be creative and how they can add to the value of the organization. So that's part one. Piece two is really about making decisions. If you have an organization where you're empowering people, you're expecting them to see a problem and make a decision forward, make a decision even without review under certain guidelines. I'm sure you probably have set some boundaries, but tell us about how you get people to make these decisions and have the confidence over time.
Well, I think it's part of this whole process of empowerment and feeling comfortable and learning. And I love when people don't include me on a decision. It makes me so happy because, there almost aren't bad decisions. Like if you just make it and you use your intelligence to make something that needed to happen, it's either good or bad, and you learn from it. And we have that structure where you're not getting beaten down for bad decisions. You're getting coached and saying, well, let's think about how we could have done that better next time. But again, you can't grow as a company. You can't develop people and have great clients with micromanagement and not empowering your team. It's just really impossible. And that's how we've had such great growth, is really working with people and saying, what would you do? How would you do it, get it done. And then a lot of times it's the business is moving so quickly, you don't have a choice, right? You have clients who want you to trust them and say, you need to get this done quickly. I was really brought up in the business world in New York City, and you don't make a decision or call someone back within a couple hours, you've lost a project. So that was kind of my training ground.
Hold on for a second. This is really a big thing. We can't operate with micromanagement. And in fact, Greg talked about how there's no micromanagement inside the company because that would not work to grow a company fast. And it also doesn't work if you want to really show that you trust your employees and that you want to build that sense of loyalty. Micromanagement is the opposite of empowerment. So this whole episode has been about empowering them to make those decisions, be okay with failure, and to move forward and not fear for their jobs and safety. When you think about micromanagement, you probably think that you don't do it. But let me ask you a question. If you took it to the next degree, how could you completely take micromanagement out of your own leadership and the culture of your company and just look for those opportunities to improve your own leadership and the culture? Now back to the interview. This really kind of relates to this whole thing because you mentioned it, but I want to put a spotlight on it. Piece 3 to this empowerment is your relationship with failure and the relationship that your employees have with failure. You're in a special place with marketing because marketing changes as quick as any other sector of what you're doing. Operations kind of stays, moves along and it evolves iteratively. Sales changes a little bit, customer service changes a little bit, but marketing is changing. It seems like probably monthly now. When you think about the relationship with failure, how do you encourage people to have a healthy relationship with failure, to pick up the pieces and keep moving forward?
Yeah, it's really taking away the stigma of failure, of not beating people down or taking things away from people. It's really communicating, okay, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? How do we do it better? And to your note, marketing is so broad now. Like people, when you tell people you do marketing, it's almost like they don't know what you mean. So our business and our services are very broad in experiential marketing, from strategy to fabrication of products to tours. So it's almost that failure makes you stronger because you have to be able to pivot and offer many different avenues of your business to a client instead of, let's say, just an event or just, an advertising campaign to market the brand. You got to really go to a client and say, here's all the tactics inside marketing. And I think you kind of find that sometimes by failing and saying, well, that didn't work for that brand. Now another brand's coming to us, maybe this works. And that really speaks to the changing of the industry.
Marketing is a series of feedback loops, right? What works, what doesn't work. And if you're afraid to fail, you can't be good at marketing.
No.
It's just period. When you think about, your own leadership, Greg, you've evolved, you've had some defining moments. Is there one defining moment over the last few years that really stands out as something that you had to change your own perspective of leadership?
One moment. Probably some times where you got it wrong, where you didn't get back and understand and listen to a client. And early on, you learn that very quickly. Because we also communicate really well with our clients and we work with clients that we have the same values. So sometimes you'll try to get business as a small company because you need to pay the bills and you take something that you necessarily don't really love and you're like, that didn't work because my passion wasn't in it. Our communication style is different. So learning from that of what you like to do and what you're good at, I think is the most important thing. And then understanding how to listen. A lot of people like to hear themselves speak. I like to hear what people say. So it's super important to understand and get into the ethos of the client because you can say, hey, it's a soda brand. Right? Yeah, I know about soda brands. We've been drinking soda our whole lives. But what is in particular important about this brand? What's the DNA? What are they trying to achieve? And I think early on, you thought, being up and coming, it's easy to say, oh, I know what everyone wants and how to handle every situation, but you don't. And you have to understand that each situation is different and it could be a water brand, water, that's like a simple brand, but there's 40 million of them and they all stand for something different and go after the different part of our community. So really looking at that and understanding that, I think, is a lot of people have big misses.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. We all think that we, hopefully make the right decisions, but being self-aware enough to know that sometimes we're wrong and being able to, come back to the team, have those conversations. If you were giving a new entrepreneur, some advice, one piece of advice on building a fast growth company, your company grew, astronomically fast. What would you say that one piece of advice is?
Only do it if you love it. I'll give it a couple pieces.
Okay.
Only do it if you love it and make sure you love it. And then 2, make sure you don't hire people just because of the cost. You hire people because of what they bring to your team. And don't focus on fancy websites and materials and things like that. Your team drives the success of you. Because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are good at bringing business, but they need a whole team to support it. And that's kind of like the theme of my success, is really being great people in.
Well, I can relate to that. It's a lot of my clients face the same thing. It's like, it's all based on having a great team and their own individual elevation as a leader to empower that team. So thanks for being here, Greg, and sharing your wisdom on the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Love it.
I love what I do. I get to have these great conversations with founders and CEOs of companies that are growing fast to talk about how their leadership really does impact the world. And I really believe that having a sense of ownership and that really feeling of empowerment that you have across the organization is the key to consistent growth. You will be the leader that they look up to, but they will also be the leader that they are respect. If you empower them, if you entrust them enough, that's the key to growth. Now, I know a lot of these episodes may challenge some of the core thinking that you have around leadership and around growth. So I invite you to reach out to me. I'd love to get to know you a little bit about what's going on inside your company. Just reach out to Gene@GeneHammett.com. Send me an email. Let me know your thoughts about these podcasts. Are they helping you? Are they serving you in some way? Are you using something to help your business move forward? Or do you disagree with this? I'd love to talk to you about what's going on inside your company to improve your level of communication, the sense of empowerment, transparency, anything you think is necessary to increase your retention, to increase your revenues, and increase your profits. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.